It is 5 minutes till. Yes, I'm prompt. I said, that's just me, blame it on the military. And then she was teasing me. She said, I can't sit up straight like you in those chairs. I'm like you, I can't do it. I said, well, blame it on my mother, blame it on my father, blame it on the military, blame it on my grandmother, blame it on my grandmother. Sit up straight. Don't be slouching down on your chair. Why are you slouching? Why are you doing that? You need to have good posture. You're going to mess up your back one day. You're going to be bent over like all of these old folk walking around and they can barely stand up straight because they're always slouching in their chairs. Don't slouch in my chair. Don't be slumping on my sofa. Don't be plopping down on my furniture. So tonight, just for a little humor as we get started, I just wanted to make some of you laugh that may join us tonight and that will join us and that will look at it. We try to be as entertaining but as informative as we possibly can. And we do welcome you. We welcome you. We welcome you. We try our best. We do just like everybody else and anybody home. If they try to tell you or make you believe that everything is peaches and cream, I'm going to tell you now, get your running shoes on, get your ballads on. Y'all know back in the day, they used to sing the song, get your ballads, put your ballads on and all of that other good stuff. I'm going to tell you, put your ballads on, put your Reeboks on, put your Chuck Taylors on, put your Nikes on, whatever kind of running shoes on, get your dollar store shoes on, get your Winn-Dixie tennis shoes on, whatever kind of running shoes you got, put them on your feet and run if somebody want to make you think or they have you believing that they have this quote-unquote real perfect relationship, marriage, or whatever they want to call it, that they have no issues, no quorums, they have no fusses, no fights, or what have you. But every one of us have some kind of issue at some point or another. Now, everybody handles them different. Everybody deals with them different. Everybody arguments are not the same. Everybody fusses are not the same. Everybody fights are not the same. Everybody, when they deal with the problems they have, they're not loud. Their arguments are not exactly the same. I had a great aunt and great uncle, my mom's aunt, which was her father's sister, and my great uncle. When they would fuss, they would laugh, they would play. And it threw me for a loop when I would hear them fuss because I had no idea. Willie, now you need to go on with that craziness. And he was like, Leola, and they were literally arguing and fussing because my cousins would say, mom and dad fussing. I'm like, you call that fussing? Now you need to come to my house with my mama and daddy, and they really get at it. You can tell that they're fussing. You can tell that they're arguing. But Uncle Willie, hey, Leola, that ain't fussing. Nah, mom and daddy, they fussing. There are moments where, and then you can hear when they have a little testiness in their voice because you thinking they tired of the playing. You think they tired of being silly. But they were literally having an argument in front of you. Like, wow, that's an argument. So I just want you to know tonight that not everybody does it. And then some people, they wait till everybody's gone. Some folk go take a ride and they're in the car and they done had this knockdown, drag out, blowout, and come back and you think they all cuddly and lovey-dovey, but they had been in the car and they had this big fuss and argument. I found that out growing up as well. And then my great-grandmother would say this. She said, where we're from in the country, go in the woods, as far as you can in the woods, and have the loudest fuss argument you can. And then come back and nobody know what you did. And there were some people that literally do that. They would go walk in the woods. I wonder why them old folk go take a walk in the woods. Well, I found out they would go walk in the woods so they could have their arguments. And it was funny. So I say that to say this. Our topic tonight, if those of you got a chance to look at the greeting and look at the invite that Evangelist had created with the little cell phone or the celicophone as the old folk will call it, or the heliphone as some of the old folks would say as well. And it was asking the question, are you an enabler to yourself or to others? And we all have somebody that enable us to do something. So tonight, this is going to be one of them topics that you're going to be like, nah, that ain't me. I just know that ain't me, no child. That's somebody else. I ain't never done that to nobody, and I don't do that. But you got to look really deep at yourself. And I wish I should have brought. Matter of fact, there's some mirrors in the corner, and you need to really look in the mirror, and you really need to look at ourselves, all of us. This is something for all of us tonight. So this is something that Evangelist and I were talking about for a while, and she said, you know what, I think this would be a good topic, and I've really been looking at it because we tend to do this, and sometimes we miss it. And that's where we all are. We enable ourselves in a lot of situations. Our parents enable themselves in relationship, marriages, friendships. Co-workers enable each other to do certain things, stay the way that they are. We enable co-workers not to get to work on time because we clock them in when we shouldn't, and they're stealing time. We enable people to stay with the habits that they have. They continue to wear the same drug habits. They continue to wear the same lying habits. They continue to wear the same sexual habits. They continue to wear the same emotional, verbal, physical, abusive habits, because the word habit comes from a Latin word to wear. We look at nuns. The word a nun wears is called a habit. She wears that because she has taken a certain vow that her life now has been given over to no longer live in a certain manner and lay with anybody anymore, whether she had never been touched by a man or whether she had been touched by a man. She had vowed to give herself solely and be married unto Christ and to the church only. So tonight, think about the word enabler. And Evangelist had pulled up some definitions for us tonight. And for a brief moment, I'm going to step out of the way, but I want you to think about it. Do you enable yourself? And I want you to think about when you look at the stages of grief. And when you think about being an enabler also carries part of the word in the part of the 5 stages of grief called bargaining or reasoning. Because when you enable somebody, you're bargaining as to why you should or should not continue in what it is that you're doing, or is it okay, because you try to find a way to justify. And then there's another part, you deny. So think about the 2 words, bargaining, deny. Now I'll stop for a brief moment as Evangelist begin to define the words for you. Hey, Sister Marion, God bless you tonight, and welcome again to all of you that are there. And again, we started 5 minutes early because I like to be prompt. I like to get as much as we can in so that those of you that want to come on and those of you that will be on, you can get all that God has given us, because I want you to think about it. I want you to look at your whole life. Evangelist?
All right, one of the biggest things that I look at, and y'all know me, I go to the dictionary because of the fact sometimes we know the meaning, but we add to or we take away from what the meaning is. The dictionary says an enabler is a person who encourages or enables negative or self-destructive behavior in another being, or an enabler to an addiction does more harm than good. Then it also says someone who persistently behaves in enabling ways, justifying or indirectly supporting someone else's potential harmful behavior. So whenever you look at it, one of the biggest things that I also looked at, an enabler can also be good or bad. Because sometimes one of the biggest things that we have to look at in a good behavior enabler is someone that continue to push you, they want to encourage you to do what is needed to be done. But what we see more is the negative part of what enabling is that we help you stay right where you're at.
Yes.
We're making excuses for you to stay right where you at. You're saying that you're not happy, and we will help you stay unhappy. We'll say that, oh, it's okay, we've all been unhappy at some point in time. Or you will hear someone say, I'm just sick of the way things are. Well, you know, it don't be like that always, but we all have them days where we're just sick of things. Mm-hmm. We make excuses to stay and keep people in the feelings that they're in.
And, you know, it's amazing because, you know, we act as though we want to see people rise We want to see people escape. We want to see people come out. We want to see people delivered. But most of the time, we really love seeing people in the places, the conditions, the shape that they're in, because it gives us a leg up. It gives us the opportunity to have the chance to be above, to be better, to be more, to have the spotlight on us. We now feel as though we're no longer the only one that's hurting, especially if we're going through the same thing, been through the same thing, was hurting in the same manner, faced the same thing. We didn't have the opportunity to be able to be loved, to be in a position where somebody cared for us. Nobody cared about the situation we were going through. Nobody looked at us as though that they saw what we were dealing with, understood what we were dealing with, recognized that somebody was emotionally, mentally, psychologically, physically, socially. They did not care about our affections. They weren't concerned about where we were at. They weren't concerned about whether or not our children were safe, we were safe. Didn't care whether or not our lights, our water, didn't care whether or not we were able to bathe, didn't care whether or not our children was at a position that they were free from any psychological or mental abuse of any form. So we enable sometimes people to stay right where they are. We push them. Oh, girl, it's going to be all right. Just deal with them. That, you know, you don't understand what that man dealing with. You don't understand what that woman is going through. You don't know what they had to deal with at home. You know, they came from abusive background. They had to deal with a woman that just didn't know how to care for them and love them. You just got to love them through. You got to pray them through. Praying is good. Understanding where they've been is all right. Talking through is all right. But when you find yourself always with a repetitive black eye, bruised arms, bruised ribs, you're steady being told that you're not worth anything. You'll never amount to anything. You ain't no more than a doormat. You're no more than a revolving door for me. You're no good than to just be laid down with it. You know, nobody gonna want you, and different things of that nature. You're always being put down in some form or some fashion. You're used in any capacity, just as though you're a piece of trash. You're looked on, you're looked down upon, you're trodden upon. You're put in a position to where you always promise something, but it's never delivered. You're put in a place and position to where they know that you should come off of what you're in. You should come out of what you're in, but they steady feeding you to different things that's going to keep you either the person that you are, that need to be on the diet. They know you want to lose weight. They know you want to get in better health. They know you want to come off the drugs. They know you want to come out of the streets that you're in, but they always find a way to allow you the avenue, the door, the doorway, the revolving door. They always give you access to it. They make sure that they maintain a way for you to be able to enjoy the habit. They know you need to come off of the alcohol. They know you enjoy the things that keep you in the place that you're in, so they enable you to do it. They keep you going to the club. They keep you bar hopping. They know you gonna go home and have an argument and a fuss. You done told your girlfriends, girl, look, I need to be home tonight by 10 o'clock. And your girlfriends know that. Your friends know that. They know that when you get in, there's going to be a fuss. There's going to be a fight. They're going to see your stuff thrown all over the ground. And then they're going to be talking about you. You're going to be calling them and they ain't going to answer your phone. They're going to be laughing at you. They're going to be saying, girl, I told you to go home, knowing darn well they ain't tell you to go home because you riding with them. So you find yourself in all of these precarious. Now you have the authority. You have the ability. And we're going to keep it simple with this first opening up tonight, because you know that this is not right. You know that this is not you. You know that you shouldn't allow it. You know that this person, all they want from you is certain things, whether it's physical, whether it's sexual, whether it's mental, whether it's financial. You know this person don't care whether or not, you live or die. They really don't love you. But you go with, the little thing. They done been through their issues. Their husband don't want to be bothered with them, but they come and run to you. And you're a man, and you know that, you're trying to move forward, but you're steady paying light bills, you're steady paying water bills, you're steady paying car notes, you're steady paying car insurances, you're steady buying all of the necessities in their house. And their husband enjoying all of the pleasures that you're giving, but you're not getting nothing in return. They're making promises after promises of what they will do and when they're going to come. And you're stuck. You're finally living outdoors. You got 4 or 5 jobs just to make sure that they stay happy, but there's no happiness for you. But you don't know how to cut it off. They come over every so often. They stay every now and then. They may spend 3 or 4 nights, and then when you look up again, they're gone. But they always want. You as a woman, you find yourself as a revolving door in the same situation. You see that you come from relationships that were like that, where your mother was the same, where your father was in the same shape, your grandmother was in the same position, but you find yourself allowing the same things to happen. You found yourself in a relationship that the person that you're with now, that you finally married, they were doing the same thing before they finally decided that they were going to get out of what they in to marry you. And now it took 4 or 5 years before you built up with what you're in, because there were empty promises that were never kept. But you was always the person that was hid in the dark before you finally became the person that was brought into the light, and you were wondering, will it ever happen? Because you was always hid in the closet. You enabled them to treat you as though you were nothing, but they made you seem like you were something. And when you finally were, you still felt empty on the inside, while you trusted them to make you feel like the best on the outside. You gonna talk?
Yeah, I was letting you get it.
No, I want you to give a little bit of that as well. Same thing inside the house of God. We enable people to use the best gifts out of us, the best years out of us. Our praying, our teaching, our singing, our ministering. We allow people to put us in positions to make us feel that they're getting ready to elevate us. And now we find ourselves in competition with everybody else. Welcome to all of you tonight again. Welcome to our ministers, and welcome to all of our pastors, our preachers, and welcome to all of our friends, and even those of you from Pakistan tonight. Are you that enabler to yourself? Do you bargain with yourself that on tomorrow I'm going to start this new year off? Let's go here. We talked about this, I think, last week, or we talked about it Saturday, and we know that we're in the Lent season, and we know in the Lent season everybody want to come off of certain things, and everybody give up certain things, and everybody decide that they want to make the sacrifice to go ahead and they want to fast, and in their fast, they're fasting for certain things to be given away until Easter come. And we know Palm Sunday is on the 4th Sunday this month leading up to Easter, and so many things that we do, but we don't replace it with anything. We don't fill it with anything. We don't allow ourselves to draw no closer to God in anything, but we allow our angers to be built up on the inside. We allow our animosities, our resentments to be able to now replace what it is that we remove, because we still allow people to use us as their welcome mat, their doormat, as their trash cans, as their landfills. We allow people to empty all of their mess and their trash into us. We allow people to pretty much, let me use a street term, pimp us out. We allow people to use us as their laying place, their place where they can go and hide and be able to dump anything into us. We begin to be the place where they want to be able to exhibit, and we're not only their sounding board, but we become their punching bag. We become the place where they can now throw everything they want to throw at, and because we give them that authority, we give them the ability to now come to us with anything, say anything, any kind of way, and use us in any manner that they choose to, because whether we're reserved, whether we're kind, whether we're gentle, whether we're loving, or whether we're just a person that really won't say anything at all, and when they realize that they can do that, now we allow ourselves to enable them to now use us as a tool of whatever sort they want to use us for. And when that happens, we enable them to now keep us at a place that we're afraid to stand up and say, hey, this got to stop. Hey, I will no longer allow you to say that. Hey, you cannot have the right to be able to call me what you want to call me, say what you want to say to me in any way that you feel that you want to say it, and then decide that you want to touch, you want to hold, you want to handle, you want to mishandle, you want to misuse and abuse me in whatever way that you want. Now, I want you to take that and use it in your analogy in any way you want to choose, because all of us have allowed people to do just those things. We've allowed ourselves to do that because when we've gotten by ourselves, especially those of us that had lived by ourselves before we've been in any relationship, we've gotten by ourselves, gotten in our cars, and we've sat for a moment, and either we've cried our tears out and our eyes have been dried, we've had ourselves with headaches so bad, we found ourselves popping so many Advils, Tylenols, extra strength Tylenols. We found ourselves drowning ourselves in whether we've had buckets of ice cream, or we found ourselves drowning ourselves in all kinds of chocolates, potato chips, all kinds of meals, or we found ourselves whether we were smokers, we smoked up every pack of cigarettes that you can find, or you was a person that just decided you never smoked weed in your life and you decided you wanted to hit. You wanted something that was strong enough to just take you away for a moment, and you went to Jamaica, man. You wanted to go to Jamaica, and you found whatever it was that you felt would numb you for a moment. I want you to catch it tonight, because you enabled yourself to now inhabit in something that you felt would bring you to a place, or you allowed yourself because you were told that you were no more than a toy, no more than a trick. You were no more than a play area. And you begin to allow these things to happen because you became the revolving door that everybody said you was. And although nobody knew what it was, but then you became that, but only you and the people you allowed to happen with knew that that's what it was. Because you gave over to these things because you got tired. You had enough. You didn't give in to the people that were saying it, but you found the people that you could do it with because you got tired of what was being said. So you said, I might as well. You enabled yourself to now drink of what had become the thing that made you drunk, because you were drunk with the sorrow, drunk with the pity. You were drunk with all of the things that now had weighed you down. And you enabled yourself to become the thing that everybody called you. The thing of it is that we enable ourselves to become these things because we took on the name of what somebody gave you, and you forgot what your name really was. You allowed people to enable you to stay there because you did not allow yourself to take back the authority and recognize what your identity really was. What did you identify with? And because you bargained with it, you begin to grieve over it. When you begin to grieve over it, you begin to ponder, is that really who I am? Is that really what my worth is? Is that really all I'm worth? Is that really how people see me? Should I not see myself as the same way? And if that's what really people see me as, then you started having family members begin to have you sulk and make you feel sorrowful and pitiful. Because it seemed like no matter where you went and what you did, you ran into the same thing, because what you did, you created this world. And in this world that you created, you begin to adopt these things and begin to allow yourself to arrest this kind of living. And you created this lifestyle because you abandoned who you was, because you refused to face the reality that you had the power to stop it. So you enabled yourself to begin to gradually live that way because you begin to tear down, recreate, establish, create a foundation, put up walls, and build a new life. And when you did that, you created a whole new identity. And when you established that new identity, you created a door that allowed these things now to set up residence, to create a shop, to begin to present themselves. And because you presented this to them, you made yourself a sacrifice for multiple things to now begin to attach themselves and begin to live within the world that you created. Is that making any sense to anybody? Mm-hmm. So now you enabled yourself to harness the power of all of these things that you knew you wasn't, but you believe that everybody else said, because that's what you allowed yourself to begin to now feed, feast, enjoy, and live. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to do that, that became the nutrients of your daily living. That became the nutrients of your new lifestyle. You begin to water your ground, fertilize your garden, and it began to grow. And when you did that, you created this new world. Then you began to bargain. Then you began to deny who you really were. You went back and forth. And when these things began to take place, you bargained, you begged to differ. When somebody came along and began to open your eyes, you became blinded in the mind, blinded in the heart. But your heart tried to open up, but you still couldn't see what the truth really was. And every time God began to open you to free you, you were used to living in the cage that you were in. Go ahead, Evangelist.
All right, one of the biggest things that I looked at whenever the Lord gave me this, and I think last time we talked was whenever I said that we was getting ready to go into this, is that we have to understand what are some of the signs of what an enabler are. And I like it because I was able to find what someone had wrote exactly some of what the signs are. It says ignoring or tolerating problematic behaviors. As parents, we understand what that is, because you know when you got that toddler 2 and 3 and they in the middle of that store throwing that temper tantrum, and because of the fact of the laws and the fact that people can call social service on you or call the cops on you for disciplining your child, most of the time we'll walk away or we'll ignore what's going on. But what tends to happen is it becomes a greater problem. It becomes problematic because that child is going to grow up. It's going to grow up and it's going to mature up, which means the behaviors are going to become greater. That was just a part. But sometimes in the body of Christ, one of the biggest things that I look at is that in ministry, especially those of us that are in leadership roles, is when we ignore something and we allow it to go on in God's house, we have enabled it to continue. As Apostle said, I think you and I had the conversation. Remember when I said when the singles ministry came into the church, that a lot of stuff happened in the church when the singles ministry came into church, because you had a group of single people meeting together, and the church now had became a meeting place. Because most people, especially grandmas, used to say, if you want to meet a good man, you go to church. Most grandmas would tell their grandsons, if you want to meet a good girl, go to church. You remember hearing that when you were younger? Mm-hmm. So we know that some issues came into God's house. They were already there. They was just under wraps. Mm-hmm. But it became open whenever we allowed those ministries to go on. Why? Because there was no one there governing anything. So now you had hookups going on in the church. Then it says providing financial assistance. Come on, y'all know good and well, if you got that friend that call you every month, every single month they call you, or every time your paycheck hits your bank account, they needing something, you are financially or enabling that person to stay where they're at. They're never going to get it together. They're never going to get their acts together. Why? Because one thing people will tell you is, I don't need you counting my change. No, I'm not counting your change. But I need you to understand you can't count my change either, because my change is not adequate or depend upon of what you're going to need, because my change is made for my household. I know what my house is going to need. The next thing we have to look at is covering for them or making excuses. We've all done that. Y'all remember when you was younger and you had that girlfriend or that friend would call you and say, tell so-and-so I was with you. Sometimes you got grown people still doing that now. So whenever you look at it, it says taking on more than your share of responsibility. How many times have we taken on other people's responsibility? I know I have in my life, because I remember I was taking care of a whole nother person that wasn't even mine, that I took on the responsibility for. But what I look at is that that person recognized that, hey, wait a minute, you did something that you did not have to do. So therefore, it wasn't enabled for that child, but it wasn't enabling for the parents not to do anything, because I did that with no support. I took care of them just like I took care of my own. So whenever you look at it, I was enabling someone else's lifestyle. Next thing it says, avoiding the issue. Now this one right here is personal right here, because sometimes me and Apostle lock horns on avoiding the issue, because he be like, now Kendra, you're avoiding the issue, you're avoiding the issue.
Well, a lot of times, my wife is right, because there are times that my wife just don't like to deal with things right then and there, and that is the issue. Some people do not like to deal with things at that moment, and you put off. That is at a place to where you enable yourself. not just the other party enabling you, but you enable yourself to continue to not fix the problem and create a greater problem. And then you begin to deny the fact that there is a problem. And the more you deny the fact there's a problem, you begin to bargain with yourself, because when you look back at yourself and begin to say, well, I already looked at that and I was thinking about what you said and how you said it and the manner in which you said it in, that's really not me. What I did say was this here, what I said I was going to do. No, you never did face anything. And that tells now that throughout your life that you didn't face anything when you avoid everything. Now, if there's a heated discussion when it starts, that's one thing. And I have no problem with that with anybody, even in our own present relationship. But if you're always, the moment something happened, avoiding it, that's an issue. But if you're only avoiding that issue in your relationship and you're on your job and you don't do that, something wrong with that. That means you got a problem with yourself and with your relationships, because that means in every relationship that you was in, you avoided the problem that was there. And the problem is not the other party. The problem literally is you. Because if on your job and there's an issue that come up and you're going to stop and you're going to deal with it on your job, especially if it's a male, but you won't deal with that issue with the male that you say you dealing with, you in love with, you in a relationship with, y'all co-partners or whatever you want to call it, y'all living together, and especially if that person is your wife or your husband or your wife, and you avoid it, but you can deal with it with any male outside your home, that's a problem. That problem is not your wife, that problem is not your husband, that problem is you. But if the wife is always avoiding issues with her own husband, and I'm talking about anybody, I'm not just talking about my wife and I'm talking about any wife that does that, or any woman that does that with a man, but she can address the issue with any man outside the house, that issue is with that woman. If any man does that with his wife, or any woman that he says he's in a relationship with, or they're just living together, whatever you want to call it, or they coexisting in the same habitat, and you avoid that with your woman, but you don't avoid that with any woman that you're dealing with outside your house, that problem is not your lady. That problem is not your wife. That problem is not your living. That problem, brother, that problem, sister, is you. Because you've avoided it. That goes back to the first few things that she talked about, and that is ignoring or tolerating problems or behavior. Because what has happened, you know your behavior, you know your issue. That meant in none of your relationships you wanted to deal with it. That means you still got some issues that you never faced throughout your life. That meant you still holding on to a previous lifestyle, mannerism, behavior, and character and characteristics that you choose to still want to have, and you just want that person to accept the fact that you ain't changing nothing, but you want them to change, and that is called manipulation. That is called control. So now you do have the issue of now wanting to be at a place of dealing with the fact that you're an enabler of yourself. You enable yourself to stay where you at, and that still calls you to now be at a place where you become a cheater. And you don't cheat because you physically go out. You cheat because you mentally, emotionally, affectionately. You cheat because you psychologically. You find other ways to now avoid what needs to be to build a perfect relationship, because you have an alternative world within yourself. Let me say this, and she can go back to these definitions. What has happened now, you've learned to be like this. Now I'm going to go psychological on y'all for a brief second. What you've done, you've now built what they used to call having multiple personalities, but they call that identity disassociation disorder. You have now created a new identity within yourself, and in that you created a whole nother world, which causes you to now become that enabler of yourself, that causes other folk to enable you. So you're fussing, you're bickering, you're arguing. Then you find a way to now, and this is what I used to tease my wife and her sister about, and they used to laugh. You become a purring cat. Y'all know how when you run a cat off, whether it's your own cat that you have at your house or some cat that's always hanging around that you done fed, they come back out there, and they want to come rub up against your leg. That's what happens with most women or most people, even a male. They find a way to want to come back and they want to rub up against you. They want to be kind. They want to be loving. And now they want to find a way to now fix what it is by now either giving of themselves or giving of a gift, or now they want to just smooth things over. They want to become the smooth criminal, but they never fix the thing. And then even after they did it, they want to make it seem like, oh, you ain't satisfied with that? I know that's what you wanted. They either buy you something, or they give of their physical self in some manner. Go back to your definitions.
Oh.
I didn't want you to stop your definitions, but I wanted everybody to know everything you just said is absolutely true. But when you say what you say, yeah, we tend to do that. And that does tend to happen. And I do have no problem with us using ourselves to a degree, because at the end of the day, if we don't use a part of who we are, how can we help people at the table? How can we get them to really recognize that, hey, do I fit that? Is that really me? Is that really us? Have we really done that? Are we really getting there? Because there's no perfect situation. There's no perfect relationship. But the perfectness comes when we mature from the place that we are. And when we recognize it, then now we can begin to bring it in subjection, to be able to learn how to bring it under control, and then learn to bring disciplines to it. So when it happens again, now we know how to begin to excommunicate it out of our life, so it doesn't cause the same trouble, to fortify ourselves against it. So you stop that avoiding the issue.
Brushing things off. We know pretty much brushing things off is lies.
You just say, oh man, they ain't having it.
Exactly. We just got to be honest with it. Brushing things off is lies. It's either lying to ourselves or lying about a situation, because one of the biggest things that I look at, sometimes we first fuss, we get irritated. And I'm going to say this because of the fact, one of the biggest things, and most anybody that know me know, most of my life I was a single parent. And because of the fact I was a single parent, there was days when things were not so good. But whenever you saw me or you saw my kids, it was always good. It doesn't matter what you may thought you knew, but when you saw me, all you ever saw was good. Why? Because of the fact that was a form of brushing things off. Everything was not always good. Every situation, every day was not always good. I was a single parent of a child with ADHD that was running all over the place, getting on my last nerve. But if you ask me how was things going, oh, it's great. It's wonderful. But nobody ever saw the stress level. Sometimes as women, I know for a fact that I remember getting into a relationship that I knew was a bad relationship, was a toxic relationship. But if you'd ask me, well, how was things going, I'd lie and say, oh, it was good. This person was this person was that. But in deep down, I knew I was hurting, I was breaking, but I was also keeping myself in a situation that was not healthy. And it wasn't until I woke up one day and said, enough is enough. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going through this. This is not the life that I choose for myself.
And think about it. That goes back to bargaining, because you were bargaining with yourself. You made yourself barter, because you didn't want to leave where you was at. You didn't want to leave what you was in. You convinced yourself into believing that everything was okay. And there's nothing wrong with nobody being private. Let's make that clear. Everybody don't really need to know your business. But when you are hurting, let me make this absolutely clear to people, period. Whether you're in the church, not in the church, whether you have a relationship with Christ or don't have a relationship with Christ, doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter whether you are a Jew, Gentile, doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're on this side in the United States or you're on the other side of the world in Africa, Pakistan, you're in Europe, you're in Asia, you're in Italy, whether you're in Antarctica, whether you're in, at the North Pole, don't matter where you at. If you are in a situation that has brought you at a place where you emotionally out of balance, mentally unstable, psychologically on the edge, and it causes you to be at a place where you can't really sleep at night, and you gotta lie to yourself, and you gotta present yourself to people as though everything is all right. Let me show you some warning signs. You're gonna be nervous. They're gonna see it in your face. They're gonna know that they know that you're lying. They can tell by the way you walk. They can tell by your voice. They can hear it in your voice tone. They can see it in your body language. They can recognize it by your conversation. So just be real and upfront. Now, it's okay to be private. People can tell when somebody is knocking you, excuse the expression, knocking the hell out of you as a woman, and you trying to lie and say ain't nobody beating the hell out of you. People gonna know if you always got sunshades on your face. Somebody done slap you around. If you always got some dark lipstick on your lips, they know somebody done bust your lips. I grew up with women. I was raised by women. And if you always got that makeup cake on your face, I'm sorry, especially if you're a light-skinned woman, you can tell them dark rings around your eyes. Hello, somebody. So I'm sorry. If you are hurting, stop lying. You're hurting. Brothers, can I tell y'all? In Louisiana alone, in Houma alone, Houma, the number of men that are battered to the number of women is greater than the number of women being beat by men. And that's only because men will not go tell the tale that they getting their behind whipped by a woman. Because they're too proud. How do I know? I knew the numbers. I found the numbers out. Because I was a man as big as I am, because I don't want to put my hands on women. And I've had 2 wives that said that I used to beat them. If y'all really saw how big Reb is, and if y'all ever look at any one of our servers, y'all see how big Reb is. Now imagine me 20 years ago without no stomach, but all muscle. And think about the fact that I had 2 wives that said I hit them. You really think that the people wouldn't have put me in jail? And you see how big my yangs is? Because I had one judge that said, ma'am, if your husband put his hands on you, you will still have the mark 2 weeks later. So what I'm saying is there are a lot of battered men just as there are women. So if you're hurting, you got to stop denying it. Stop bargaining with yourself. Stop trying to convince yourself. Stop trying to put yourself in a position where you're trying to find an emotional way out. You're riding down a river that has no water and the dirt is dry. You're trying to paddle up a stream of water where it's raging and there are rocks. And you're going down a cliff and you don't even have a parachute. So when you look at bargaining, you look at what she just said, you're brushing it off, you're avoiding the issue, you're trying to find a way to lie to yourself. You don't convince yourself so much that you're hurting so bad that you got ulcers, that the medicine, Prilosec ain't working, Prevacid ain't working. The doctor done gave you a prescription for it and it ain't healed you on the inside. You done drunk so much milk and you done drunk so much Kaopectate and you done drunk so much Pepto-Bismol, and ain't none of that stuff doing you no good. And you can't sleep at night. You toss, you having nightmares. The moment somebody raised their hand, whether male or female, you're afraid. You're jumping. You're fidgeting. So we have to recognize, we have to stop bargaining with ourselves. We got to stop brushing these things off. You know the man out there doing you harm and he done came home. You done went to the doctor. And you know you keep yourself as a woman. You know you keep yourself as a man. And you got something you ain't never had in your life. Now you got medicine that you got to take to bring it under control to get rid of it. And you said, no, he told me he wasn't. He said he wasn't doing nothing. He said that happened because he sat down on the toilet at work. Let me help y'all understand something. Y'all see my face? Stop bargaining. Stop being at a place to where you feel that you're going to enable him. Baby, see, that ain't really what happened. See what it was? She came on to me. Or she said, baby, well, see what happened? My boss needed me to stay late. You had to stay late for the last 3 months? Baby done came, you know, you done had a vasectomy, and you can't have no children. Is she pregnant? Maybe it came loose. Have you lost your mind? Baby, it was the Lord. The Lord done blessed us with a child. Really? But you went on and went with it. You know your paycheck don't have a whole lot. And all of a sudden y'all have all of these new things coming in because she says she got a raise on the job. But you ain't have sense enough to look at the pay stub to see where these hours are coming from. Because you have that much trust. It's one thing to have trust. It's another thing to know what's really going on in your house. Now, don't nobody get no crazy ideas. I'm not putting no ideas in nobody's head. But when you enable certain situations, it create other things. And it allow for things to take place. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that was it.
No, you forgot denying the problem.
a lot of times we'll sit there and we will deny that there is a problem. But my biggest thing is you have to recognize that there is a problem. Even whenever you get ready to go into certain programs, especially for NAS and Alcohol Anonymous and these things, you have to, first step is you have to deny, you have to admit that there is a problem. You have to say, I have a problem. So that's no different than recognizing, because these are only signs of us recognizing that we are enabling. My biggest thing is, if you enable yourself, you'll enable someone else. And we have to remember that in the body of Christ, are we enabling people to stay where they're at? The Bible tells us we're supposed to warn them in the gate. Are we warning people, or are we making excuses for them to continue to live where they're at? Because one of the biggest things I look at is I don't want that blood on my hand. There are certain things that I got to give an account for that I know I have to give an account for. But there are just some things I'm just not going to give an account for. There are just some things I'm just going to say and just say it and be through with it. Why? Because of the fact I'm still responsible. So my thing is, am I an enabler? And am I enabling someone else? Sometimes I also look at it is that we know that a friend will stick closer than a brother, right?
Yeah.
We know that. But you know, one of the biggest things that I look at, what kind of friend are we? Because I was always taught a friend going to tell you when you're right, and a friend going to tell you when you're wrong. And if you that type of friend that you don't want your friend to tell you when you right or you wrong, are you truly that person's friend?
That's absolute. Because, I mean, if you know you're wrong and you know your friend is doing some things that they shouldn't, you actually enabling them to continue to do wrong to their wife, do wrong to their husband, do wrong to their fiance, whether it's a fiance to a woman, fiance to a man, to their girlfriend, to their boyfriend. You know they are drinking too much. You know they're smoking too much. You know they're doing some things that they shouldn't. And when we do that, same thing as leaders in the church, you know, Paul said that we should not lay hands on no man quickly. If you know that person's lifestyle really doesn't line up with the call that they have on their life, because listen, gifts come without repentance, and it doesn't mean that the person have been called by God. God didn't call the person, that the Holy Spirit is not operating through the person, but you know that they still living a lifestyle that is still riotous. They still haven't come out of everything. They still haven't laid everything aside. Paul said that we ought to lay aside every weight. There's still some weights that are still causing them to stumble to the sin that they used to enjoy so much. They have not put off the former conversation of the old man, which is corrupt. There's still some corrosive things in their life, and it's evident. He says some men's sins are evident. You can see it. It's wide out in the open. So you know these things are there. You recognize they're there. You're the pastor, you're the apostle, you're the prophet, you're the bishop. You see it, but you're getting ready to do all of these consecration services. You're getting ready to do all these affirmation services, and you ready to do it because it don't matter if the program's set. I'm sorry, I'm that leader, because where I come from and what they have taught us and what we had to go through, okay, we're going to put this on hold until you ready to make sure that you're ready to make this commitment, because God going to charge me and you. Because when you get out there and sin because I've laid hands and the Presbyterian have come together, all of us are just as guilty as your sin. Yes. So if you go out there and kill somebody, you go out there and all the women you laying up with, or you go out there and you lay up with a whole bunch of men, it's just like we laying up with them men with you. We know you laying with men, but you getting ready to get in the pulpit and you telling everybody not to, but that's what you're doing. Or you a woman and you laying up with a whole bunch of women and you got a husband at home. We no different than you are, because that's what the word say. But we got leaders that are still doing this. We done put you over the music ministry in the church. We allowing you to be over our children in the church. So you can't. So hold up, wait a minute. See, we still enabling a lot of things that take place. We know you a cheater. We know you're a thief. We know you messing over folk money. We know you getting over folk. We know you're an embezzler. So you embezzle. So now you go embezzle the money in the house of the Lord. And the people ain't going to look at you first. The people going to look at us. Because they're going to say, Pastor, why you put them there? You knew that's what they did. You knew that's what they went to jail for. You know that's how they got over on folk. You know they're computer thief. You know they hack everything. So they're going to look at us. And we're just as guilty as the person that did it because we laid hands on them too quick. So we got to recognize, so we enabled the same things to take place. What they did, they sat back. Because see, that's what a thief does. A thief sat back and they study, they watch, they recognize, they wait for the right opportunity. They don't steal right away. They don't come in, and the thief ain't going to do nothing where nobody know it, because you ain't going to know it's gone until you go look for it. And see, they ain't going to take the thing that your eye looking at. They're going to take the thing that your eye ain't been looking at. Because they won't take the thing that they know you always watching. But they will take the things that are valuable, and they're going to take a little bit at a time. They won't hurt you. They ain't going to kill you. They ain't going to beat you. But a robber, they'll bust you across your head and take your life all at the same time and don't care about it. But a thief, they come and they become your best friend. They get close to you. They make sure they know where you are at all times. They gain your personal confidence. They gain all of your trust. They get close to you than your wife, your husband, your best friend, your son, your daughter. They love you so much to where you trust them with your very life. And that's the very one that's stealing right under your nose and you don't know it. And when you do, sometimes we forget how saved we are. And here's the thing that I want you to understand. An enabler will cause you to want to hurt them. And that's where you got to really show your salvation. Ask me about it. Because there have been many times I had to make sure that I had to call on Jesus. Because, boy, there was some times, some folk that I let get close to me that I really wanted to just say, yeah. Why are you saying that, preacher? Why are you saying that, Garrett? Because you got to remember, even though you're in this flesh, that sometimes your flesh want to come back. It want to take you to places, and you still got to come back and submit yourself to God. And God will do the work that needs to be done. Because he can do it better than us. So when you look at the word enabler, as she just looked at, are we enabling ourselves to continue to be at a place to where it's okay? Because at one point, I'd run and grab me some cognac or whatever flavor. Because I love expensive stuff. My wife and them tell you right now, oh, you got an expensive palate. They would tease me, I think it was yesterday. Always had one. I started working, I made my money, and I just so happened, some of my family, they brought me around stuff to be able to taste stuff, and you're going to want this, you're going to want to try this, and I'm sorry, I had a godmother that took me around. I mean, I learned a whole lot of different things, so I acquired a taste for a lot of good stuff. I eat caviar, expensive caviar. I don't eat it anymore, but do I eat it? Yes. I don't eat the cheap stuff. Cheap stuff nasty. The good stuff, well, you're going to pay about $150, $200, $300, $400, $500 for it. But I don't do that no more. Used to drink fine wines. The cheapest bottle I would buy be $70. Expensive bottle, my wife would tell you, $200, $300. But I don't do that. Why am I saying this? Because that was a point in my life before salvation, I go grab me a bottle. Make me mad before I go do you something else, I grab me a bottle. But then I had to find other ways to get away from it. Because I don't do drugs. Never did. Then drugs don't make it. When it wasn't a bottle, I find me women. Don't do that no more either. Don't satisfy nothing. So when you get to the place, those were the things that enabled me to stay where I was. But the women was only because a lot of things that happened in my life when I was a child. But I had to bring that under control because that didn't do and satisfy anything, because I was still a man, irregardless of what happened. So you got to think about the things that enable you to be where you are, that enable you to get to where you are. But that's not who you are. What defines you as who you are? And just because, and let me put this out there, and I'll let Evangelist close it out with this. What defines you as the believer that you are now? Are you defined by where you came from? that's a part of your story? Or are you defined by who saved you?
Okay, I'm going to leave you with this thought right here. A lot of times, as family members, as friends, as loved ones, we have to remember that the motives of us being an enabler sometimes come from fear, guilt, hope, and victimize. We have to remember that because of the fact, one of the biggest things is these are tactics, as Apostle said, for manipulation. And this is how people manipulate us to allowing us to helping them stay where they are. Well, you don't know what I've been through. That's the biggest one, honey. Every last one of us can put a t-shirt on that one. You don't know what I've been through. You ain't lived where I live. You haven't walked down the streets that I walked down.
You don't understand what I'm going through right now. You don't realize how bad it is.
Every teenager in the world have said that, including ourselves and our children. You don't understand my emotions. You don't understand my feelings. You don't know what I deal with every day.
That's why Will Smith made the song, Parents Just Don't Understand.
Exactly. So the guilt, one of the biggest things we all know, that we know.
Say that word again.
Guilt.
That is.
We know how to play guilt trips. Oh my God. But most of all, whenever we look at it, is that we have to learn the difference between helping and enabling. There is a difference. And when we come back on Saturday night, we will discuss the difference in helping and enabling, because we're going to be on this topic for a little while. So if you got anything from this on tonight, tag somebody tonight and say, hey, join me Saturday at the table as we continue this conversation, because it's about building each other, because of the fact it's not just you, your walk, my walk. How can we say I need you, you need me, we need each other to survive if we're not surviving with each other and we're killing each other? Are we enabling ourselves, or are we enabling others? So we love you, we love you, we love you. Our hour has been well spent. As always, Apostle will start us up early. We ask that you join us on tomorrow night for our Fire Fuel Wednesday night Bible study. Apostle will be teaching on tomorrow night. So we look forward to hearing from you, to seeing you. We thank you all for all your support and supporting us as a whole, but most of all, supporting us at the table. Because one of the biggest things that I look at is at the table is the time that we sit down and we have real conversations. Those are the conversations that a lot of us just don't want to talk about. Remember, I said that one of those fitted me is that I was the one that always avoid the issues. I don't like certain topics. I don't want to discuss certain things. If it makes me feel...
Use your favorite word, confrontation.
I thank you. I don't like confrontation.
It just came to mind. That's why I said
But I also don't like
earlier
to get to the place to where I feel uncomfortable.
Right.
So
that's all confrontation is that when it makes you uncomfortable, it feels confrontational. Even though it's not, most of the time, with my wife, to her it does feel confrontational when she feels uncomfortable.
So we love you, we love you, we love you. We say thank you for joining us on tonight. We look forward to seeing you and hearing from you. Also, if you don't have anything to do on tomorrow night, join us at 6:25, because Apostle's always going to start at 6:25. It's 6:30. If you come on at 6:30, you're going to be 5 minutes too late. So you might as well join at 6:25. Whenever that little red circle light up, go ahead and click that play button and join in for our Fire Fuel Wednesday night Bible study. God bless each and every one of you. We love you. Have a great night.
Have a great night, everybody. God bless. God bless.